Alright guys, how you doing? It's Rabea, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, we're looking at a brand new UAFX pedal called the Anti, which is a 1992 high gain amplifier. Trying to think what that might be, probably a 5150. And the reason I think this is going to be really cool is because, you know, most people probably refer to Universal Audio as more of the kind of classic side of things with regard to their tones. You know, like the Ruby was an AC30, the Woodrow was a Blues Junior, I think, and the Dream being the Fender Twin. And they kind of just sit more in that world. So to do a high gain amplifier such as the 5150, I think is very cool. And of course, I really wanted to check it out because I own 5150s. I use my 5150 Mark I for the early days in Tosca, and I have a 5150 Mark II as well, and I just kind of know how they sound. Pretty much everyone in the world of metal knows how a 5150 sounds, so I'm really interested to see how their amp model of that amplifier sounds and feels. I've got the Anti set up on a pedal board with some reverb and delay courtesy of the UAFX Starlight and Golden reverberator, and the first thing I'll say is it looks very striking. It's a bright red pedal and it's a really nice sort of satin finish. Same form factor as their other UAFX pedals, and the controls are very straightforward. You've got an alternative set of controls as well. You can flick between different speaker models that are loaded into the pedal, and it even has an overdrive built in because, of course, using a 5150, putting a tube screamer in front is very common in the world of metal. So they've actually built that into the pedal as well. On top of that, it's Bluetooth, so you can get the phone app and you can control it there and adjust things internally that you can't access on the pedal. It's a stereo pedal, so of course you can use it full cable method, you know, effects return, all that kind of stuff. Or you can run it stereo out into reverb and delays like I'm doing, so I'm going to have stereo effects on top of that. In terms of the controls, you've got pre-gain, which of course is gain. Then you've got presence, you've got output for the overall output of the pedal, bass, middle and treble. And then you have alternative controls that you can access with the toggle switch in the middle. And that allows you to control resonance. There's a built-in gate as well. Of course, got control over the overdrive pedal. Being a tube screamer, you'll have gain, tone, and level, which you can control with the alternative switch and just dial it in how you like. So, you know, like boost the level, lower the gain, boost a bit of tone, all the rest of it. On top of that, you've got a toggle switch for the 3 different channels in the 5150. So you've got clean, rhythm, and lead. And then you've also got control over the different speaker models. So the red LED shows up 3 different speaker models and the green LED shows up the other 3 speaker models. So you've got things like a British V30, then you've got an American V30, which we'll probably spend most of the time using. Then you've got the white 75, and then there are other 3 different speaker models that I'll find out when I open the app because I can't remember them off the top of my head. On top of all that, you've got presets that you can access with the foot switch, and you can actually change what those foot switches do. So you should be able to see a screen grab of the app right now. But as we open it up, you can see it's in preset mode and all the rest of it shows you how to do that. So when you go to edit mode, you can see now these are the things that we can address inside. So first things first, overdrive, you've got a difference between a tube screamer and TC. Next, we've got bright switch. Everybody knows on the rhythm channel, you've got the option to use a bright switch to brighten up that sort of rhythm channel, crunch, or whatever you want to call it. Next, we've got noise gate, and as you can see in here, if I turn it on, you can see all the different parameters like threshold, attack release, attenuation, and hold. Move down, it tells us we're on the crunch channel. You've got the input routing. As you know, with the 5150, you've got high and low input. I usually ran mine in high, so we'll do that. And next up is very interesting, we've got bias mode, and you can choose between cool, warm, cool choke, and warm choke. Next up, we've got post gain, which is on the front channel of a 5150. You always had pre-gain and post-gain. Post-gain being the sort of channel volume, and then you have master volume. Then you've got a room reverb, that kind of sets the amplifier in a room environment in the stereo field, which is really nice. If I go across to settings, this is where you can see how you can change what those foot switches do. So the way I've got mine set up is the left switch turns on and off the overdrive pedal, because I want to be able to stomp that in and out. And then on the right switch, I can go between live mode and preset mode. If I flick down the menu, you can see the 3 different options it gives you to be able to use. And then you've got the opportunity to change it to 4 cable method, which is if you were going to use this into an effects return. In any case, that is the phone app, very useful. It's nice to be able to control all the other elements of this amplifier inside the phone. And I imagine if you put it on the front of the pedal, it'd be way too many controls. So I get why they've done it. Anyway, that's an overview of the UAFX Anti. Now I want to check it out, use my guitar. It's running straight into the computer. As I said, I've got reverb and delay in the loop, but aside from that, let's crack on. Okay, so we'll start with the first channel, the rhythm channel. You've got rhythm, crunch, and lead. Now, Rhythm, originally I thought was just clean, but it can get quite gainy. And everyone knows the clean channel 5150 is not exactly amazing, but you can hear it here. Put on a little bit of reverb and delay. I don't really remember the clean sounding that good on the original 5150. Could be wrong. Let's try punch. Bit of a chime there. Punch plus. That feels like a crunch now. That's in low mode. If I put it in the high input. So you can clearly hear that there's gain now, and if I turn the gain up, back off the presence a bit. So that's very gainy. Boost the gain. Right, let's move across to the crunch channel. Okay, so the crunch channel, you've got the option to use the bright switch. So that's without the bright switch. Turn it on. It's definitely subtle. I feel like it's more subtle than the way I remember the 5150, but it is brightening it. For me, this was the channel that I would do a lot of the kind of picked patterns and stuff. We've got the choice between the bright switch on and off. We've got the tube screamer. We can have high or low input. So on the low, this is what we've got. So it's a little nicer for that kind of vibe. The other thing I used to like about the crunch channel on the 5150 is that's where I would have ran that alongside my Marshall. So I used to boost the gain to say about there. Presence. Yeah, I mean, that reminds me of the crunch channel on the 5150. Tube screamer on. probably a good opportunity to flick through the different speaker models. So this is the US V30. This is the UK V30. This is the white 75. And now using the app so that I can identify the other cabs, this is the D65. We've got a Super 80 and a brown JB. For me, I prefer the US. It's the closest to the sound that I know, like for that kind of speaker tone with this amp, so I'm going to stick with that, but just so that you could hear it, of course. Okay, I think at this point we should move on to the high gain. Now that we're on the high gain channel, I've got it dialed in. Might back off some mid, boost some treble, bit of bass. Yeah, it feels really nice. It's got a spongy quality to it that's reminiscent of the 5150. I had the overdrive on, I've backed off some mid. Okay, so what I'm going to do is show you the gate real quick. So if you flick over to Alt, then you've got control firstly of resonance. And then next up we have the gate. So this is off. And then we can dial it in. And obviously there's a point where you can overdo it with the gate. But I think the idea is when you're using the overdrive and the amount of gain in the pedal, that it's just nice to have it there. It can be nice and tight and choked, or you can have it sort of so it's a little bit more of a smooth release. I generally don't use gates. Because I don't find myself using that much gain where I need to, but it's great that they've put it in the pedal. Now, with the overdrive, we're still in Alt mode. If I was to dial this all the way back, it bypasses the overdrive. So but if I gain it up, so these three controls now represent the overdrive pedal that's in front of it. Let's quickly swap over to the other and see what that sounds like. It's a lot tighter. Okay, so the next part of this video, before we move to trying it out against something like Neural Archetype Nolly, was just the bias mode. So this is the cool bias. Let's flick it over to warm. That's my personal favorite. It's a bit more punchy. We've got cool choke. And we've got warm choke. So I'm going to keep it on warm. Cool. So, next thing we're going to do is we're going to just run it against the amp model of Archetype Nolly. Now, the amp model is, I believe, the high gain model of a 5150 in his plugin. So, there's a few different ways that we're going to try this. We'll try it with the speaker models built into the Anti, and then we'll try it with the IRs in Archetype Nolly. And then I'm going to turn off the speaker models in the Anti and use the ones in there, and we'll be able to hear the amp next to it. So, my gut is going to tell me that the Anti has a lot more like high-end information and presence. So for that reason, let's just get everything at halfway. So that's the Anti, and now let's hear the 5150 in Archetype Nolly. I'll put everything at halfway. Back to the Anti. It's worth saying these are completely different models, done completely differently, and they'll have different strengths and weaknesses next to each other. This isn't which one's better, this is just how do they sound alongside each other. So, let's boost the presence. Bit of treble, bit of mid actually, bit of bass. Now let's go back to Archetype Nolly. Do the same. Right, so I've tried to match them as best I can. We're just using a 57 in Archetype Nolly, and I've dialed in the tone on it. So this is Archetype Nolly. And here comes the Anti. So now we're going to compare the Anti straight into Archetype Nolly using the cab section. So this is Archetype Nolly. And here comes the Anti. Last thing we'll try really fast is I'm going to turn on the tube screamer. So this is how we would have it set up. Set it up exactly the same. So this is Anti with the tube screamer. And this is Archetype Nolly with the tube screamer. Back to the Anti. Back to Archetype Nolly one last time. Okay, so that's a look at the Universal Audio UAFX Anti pedal. So it's a 5150, definitely a 5150. I don't think it's any other model than a 5150 in that pedal. I mean, 1992 high gain amp makes sense. What I really like about this pedal is they've thought about the external things aside from the amp model. Adding that overdrive pedal in there, adding a noise gate in there, kind of gives you a bit of everything you need when using an amplifier like that in real life. On top of that, using the phone app, it's nice that you can change the bias. It's nice that you can affect the post gain to bring the whole level of the pedal up. It's nice that you can also change the functionality of the foot switches, but that's a little small thing. My personal opinion is that I feel like it sounds and feels like a 5150. So yeah, that's the top and bottom of it really. What do you guys think in the comment section? I'm gonna put the links to this pedal in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of this video in particular. As always, I'd like to thank Tom Waterman for sending this over for me to check out. And you know, I think at the end of the day, it's cool that the Universal Audio is starting to branch out into the high gain world, which is new grounds I feel like for them. One thing I would say is it would be great if you had MIDI in the pedal, because you don't have that in any of the other UA pedals. It'd be really nice to be able to MIDI program this using it on a board with MIDI controllers, all the rest of it, but you can't, sadly. So I feel like you lose out on the functionality in a live setting and tone building setting by not having MIDI. You know, like in my situation, if I was using this kind of rig, I'd like to be able to shift between the crunch, the clean, the lead, and changing patches on my, you know, golden reverberator and starlight, and adding, you know, tube screamer where necessary for song sections. But you can't really do that. You can only have it so that it's on all the time with the tube screamer, and you can sift through presets and with the foot switch. But in a situation where I want to jump from a high gain lead tone with reverb and delay to a rhythm patch with no reverb and delay, I'd have to tap dance. I can't just press one button and it'll change, which is a shame. But outside of that, I think they've definitely thought this pedal through nicely. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd like to know what you think in terms of the comparison as well, how close you feel it sounded to a 5150. I felt it was pretty close. What do you think? I'd love to know. In any case, thank you for watching this video. Like, subscribe and share. I've been Rabea, and I will see you all very soon.